Rose has got a mic at the back. So we're going to take questions on anything now, anything that you like. Obviously, if it's a very, very specific thing to your home that needs to be fixed, we aren't going to be able to fix it, but our teams are all out there. We're going to start with you, Andrew. It is Andrew, isn't it? It is. And you may as well have my mic because you're down the front.
Okay, you were on about electric cars, charging points. It would be impossible for us to have one, as we're not on a road. We're in Cameroon's Close, so it's a cul-de-sac, and we're one bungalow back. So how could we have a charging point for an electric car?
Go for it. I wouldn't have an answer for that one.
Forgot that. I live in a cul-de-sac, and I've got a charger, so it can be done. I think as well, whilst that is going to be part of our asset management strategy, and I'm not going to say that it's going to be something that we can offer customers even in the next 3 years, but definitely going forward. I think also as well, though, we need to be working with other partners, whether that's local authorities or commercial companies. And we were recently at Liverpool at a housing conference, and I took my electric car up, and it's got a big range, and it was great. I got all the way up, and then I had 40 miles left, and I could not find a charger. And then I noticed there were these little blue dots on some of the lampposts, and I wondered what that was. And my map in my car kept saying, there's an EV charger here, and I just couldn't see them anywhere. And guess what? Liverpool Council have put EV chargers into their lampposts. And that's the type of thing that we need to be looking at, but not just us. Can Baines Council, can other councils that we work with? If Liverpool Council can do it, then other councils in the country should be able to do the same. And, you know, we need to be helping them. We need to be looking at innovative ways, whether that's working with councils or working with commercial companies to be able to offer those services to you. I'm not going to say that's going to happen overnight, but there's definitely ways to get around even the most difficult places.
Excellent. Hold on, Keith, just wait until you get the microphone. And just before you speak, Keith, I didn't do a very good job of introducing this panel, did I? And there's a new face on the panel because a new member of our team, nearly a year ago, is Jane Smith, who is our Chief People Officer. So Jane is looking at all things to do with our people, our culture, but also how we transform the business. I think you all know Julie, our Chief Property Officer. I'm Paul, Chief Customer Officer. This is Vic, Chief Officer.
Chief Officer.
So we'll go to the back and Keith next, and we'll come back to you, Andrew, in time.
What I said is, do you think there's any remote chance of getting the same thing in Baines as what they got in Liverpool? Because I don't.
Well, we work very closely with them. I know that one of their main drivers for their strategy over the next 10 years is very much around sustainability.
Yeah.
They won't be able to achieve their ambitions and their targets without doing something like that. So they've started on that journey of a clean air zone. Surely the next natural step has to be to start to bring in a charging infrastructure as well.
And there are some parts of the world at the moment that have roads that charge cars automatically, so it doesn't necessarily, the infrastructure of the future won't look like what it does today. Did you want to ask another question, Andrew? Let me come to you again.
I'm going to ask, do you use contractors or is it all your own men?
This is it's your show, Julie.
Yes, we do use contractors. There are some what we call specialist works that we haven't got the skills within Curo to be able to do. Most notably things like drainage, other things like that. Up until recently, it would have included roofing. One of the big pains of my role is the amount of leaks that we have, leading to in some cases, damp and mold. We need to be much, much better at how we do that. We've recently done a pilot with having some of our guys do some of the roofing repairs works. And guess what? Not only could we do them at a phenomenally cheaper rate, but also at much better quality than some of the contractors that we've previously worked for. So we are going to roll out a roofing team in-house. We've just rolled out a specialist team dealing with damp and mould, because that's one of the pain areas for our customers. And increasingly, we need to look at, not only can we do things more cheaply, but more importantly, if we bring them in-house,
That lady there.
can we do them at a much better
It's his
quality?
show, isn't it?
So whilst we've got some really great contractors, I'm not saying all contractors are bad, we think that in many cases we can do it much better and more cheaply.
Thank you. Right, Andrew, last one from you, so you're not dominating the whole show, because we've got a few people waiting over there. Go on, carry on.
Okay, we had a radiator that was behind our fridge and freezer, and we asked for it to be moved, and they said yes. So they put it by the kitchen door. First time they put it up, the pipe stuck out above the kitchen door, and you couldn't shut it.
You don't want us to do anything about it though, do you?
You did mention this before.
They come back and altered it because we phoned up.
Right.
So the second time they come back, put the radiator up, contractor, and the radiator is like that.
Do you want us to come back and sort that for you?
There ain't no bother now.
I'm going to make sure on Monday
You said
we
it in
get
front of
somebody to
everyone,
come out.
okay?
There's a lady over there.
My daughter's got a question, but I'll explain a little bit more context from it. So her question is, when are we getting our lollipop lady? My sort of addition to that is, last year I raised the point about road safety outside Mulberry Park School, adoption of roads, still not happened. There has been progress in that there's lines painted, which is great. However, then the change in the bus service has meant that it's actually more dangerous on that corner because there's two buses trying to get past each other and mounting the curbs, etc., etc. Meant to be a zebra crossing. Lollipop Lady's been promised. Full school now. What's occurring?
Thanks for the question. So those of you who live here will know that it's been a difficult journey trying to get a few things agreed on this estate, such as adopting the roads, which is the process by which the council takes on responsibility for all of any changes and additions that can be made to a road surface and the areas around it, signage, all of that kind of stuff. We have spent 6 years trying to get the first phase of Mulberry Park adopted, and it's not happened yet, as you're aware, but we are expecting it to happen later this year because we have at last made some progress with the council on that one, and also with Wessex Water, which was another element that was holding it up. The changes that you referred to, which happened about 5 or 6 months ago, I think, with the double yellow lines and the bus stops, that took ages as well. I'm really sorry it took so long to make it safe out there, but I hope you'll agree that now that people aren't parking outside the hub, it has made the area a lot safer, and it's made it easier for the bus to get around. We don't have any complaints about the buses from that perspective any longer, whereas previously the bus stopped coming on some days because they couldn't get through. Equally, if an emergency vehicle had to get into the estate, it wouldn't have been able to when people were parked outside the hub on those double yellow lines. So that is a bit of progress, but I can't promise you that we're going to have a lollipop lady tomorrow, because again, it's something else that needs to be agreed with the Highways Authority. So it's never been easy. Vic and I spend a lot of time with the chief exec and the team at Baines. We were with them on Wednesday afternoon. We have a really good relationship with them, but it is often quite difficult getting things done reasonably quickly, and they are chronically underfunded. So I will promise that I will take away the issue of Lollipop Lady again today. I'll talk to Carl in our teams, who's dealing directly with that at the moment, and we'll get you an answer next week about exactly when that will happen. I don't know if you're a member of the Residents Association, but there's a really good Residents Association here. They've got a stand out there as well. As who was saying that earlier on? I think Paul was talking about that earlier on. We want to encourage more residents' associations because they really work, they're really useful, and they can help you when you've got issues locally. You can go to the Residents' Association just to one place and they can raise it with us or with the council or whoever. So we'll make sure we feed back in that loop, but I'm really sorry you're still waiting, and I will push for another answer on that one, or at least an update on that as soon as I can.
My question was also for the previous speaker who was here, but it could also involve everybody, and that is, why don't we have a general engagement policy? Right, I agree that different sectors need to have separate engagement, but some overall situation so that you don't end up sitting in a committee that never does anything and doesn't even tell you why they can't do things, etc. and then you hear that another committee is doing super work, doing this and that. So if there was one general, overall, maybe supervisory engagement policy, I think it would help all the individual sectors.
So I think that's a very good point. We have that. So it's called the Oversight Group. So what Paul is actually, is Paul still here? So Paul, who was here before, another Paul, talking about being involved, he is a member of the Oversight Group. The Oversight Group is a group of residents, and that's exactly what they're there for. They have the general oversight of our performance across all of the areas that we're involved in. So they don't just focus on repairs or estates or something else. They are focused on the whole part of the business. And what Jane was talking about earlier is that we're going to have a new board committee, and the board committee will work closely with the Oversight Group, and those two groups will be the ones that help us hold us to account for all of our services and ensure that we are delivering in line with the regulatory framework. Okay, any other hands? Where have we got? We've got someone on the right-hand side.
Yes, I have a question for you. Now, we had scaffolding put up at the Labbot in April, and it's still there now. And both my next door neighbour and I are partially sighted. We've had no light all the way through the summer. It has been absolutely abysmal. Now, we haven't had any work done, been there since July, early July at that. So we'd like to know when the job is going to be finished, or is it ever going to be finished? There's still windows to be put in our block, and all the rest of the blocks are suffering the same.
Probably.
Now, they changed contractors, so I've been told, and that's as far as we've got. But it's the light issue that is really, really bothering people, and it's affected quite a few people's mental health. I know it is an odd thing to say, but it does. When you're living in the dark and you can't go out, as a lot of people can't, then it's not funny. So, and it's been a real bad thing for me too.
I'm really sorry to hear that, Janet. You're right. What's happened is we employed Anglian to carry out our doors and windows programme this year. We had lots and lots of complaints about the quality of the work that they were doing. And even though we met with them and we agreed an improvement plan with them, unfortunately the quality of the work didn't improve, and we had to take the decision to say goodbye to them. My colleagues at the moment are working on an alternative for those properties where we had started work, and that included putting up scaffolding. I'm really sorry to hear that and that you don't know what's happening. I can't give you a definitive answer today, but I'll take it away and we'll find out when I go back to work on Monday what the plan is, and we will let you and the other tenants down at the Labot know what's happening. More importantly, we will make sure that there is at least some temporary lighting put up, especially as we're going into autumn, and obviously it's a sheltered scheme. So I'm really sorry about that. I can't give you a solution today, but we will give you a solution to it, okay?
Hi, we've got a question about the bus routes. So kind of carrying on from what the lady said in front of us, we live on Williams Road, just not far down from here. And I've spoken to some guys that have been working on the area, including the guys who were working with the people who were laying the tarmac, who actually told me they were testing it for a bus route. And then we had other people coming down to work out where the yellow lines were going so that they could decide exactly where the bus route was going and everything else. And when I brought this up with the Residents Association, they apparently have been told that it's not actually been definitely decided that that's where the bus route is going to be, but we've been told exactly where the bus shelter or the bus stop is going to be on Whittaker Road. We've been told exactly where the yellow lines are going. I've seen them testing the road for the safety. I've seen the fact that the tarmac is different. So how come is it that we find out after we've moved in that there's going to be a bus route? And a lot of the people on Williams Road particularly are very unhappy about it, because actually we chose to live that far down into the estate so that it was actually safer away from the traffic. And they've told us that it's actually going to be starting by April at the latest. Well, that means the bus has got to try and get down Callaway Road, which is already dangerous because of all the traffic that's being moved from out the front here, and all of the cars are now parking along Callaway Road. You can't even drive down there in a car, let alone a bus. So all of this is kind of like a host of things that need to kind of be looked at and solved, because we need to be made sure and made aware whether this bus route is happening, because most of us don't want it.
Well, I'll start off, and Vic, you might want to jump in because you know more about the original plan for the site. It was always the plan that that buses would go into the estate once the estate was built out. And I'm very sorry if you weren't told that if you bought a home. Yeah, I hear you. All I'm saying is it was always the plan that the bus was going to go through there. As part of the planning regulations as well, we have to do everything we can to try and make our newer estates climate friendly, and that means promoting public services, public transport, and not promoting everybody using a car all the time. So we have car parking spaces in line with the planning allocation of 1.4 places per home, but there is a bus route and there was always going to be one. Exactly where that bus goes through the estate, I'm not sure that has been finalised, because we are still in discussions with the local authority and with First Bus again about exactly when and how that will happen. But the buses won't go through the estate until, firstly, we've finished the final phase in the corner there, which won't be long, but also until we finish phase 2 here as well, because the bus route will change ultimately when we've got access into the park. So I don't think it's set in stone yet, and I was asked a question earlier on outside by another resident, and I know that it's something that we will work with the Residents Association on to make sure everybody's very clear about it. Like most things here, we've tried to involve residents, and we've said, for example, what sort of shops would you like to see when we put the retail units in there? And we can have residents influence things like the routes that buses take, but there's going to have to be a bus going into the estate to enable people to get out of the estate without driving.
I don't have much to add, because the principle originally was, as part of the development, we were required to make a payment for the additional route, and that's what we did. We funded a new bus. The service isn't a service that Curo is responsible for, but we're required under planning law to fund the bus. I think if you're saying, what you're saying is you don't feel sufficiently able to, you don't know what's going on and you don't know how to influence that decision. I think it's for our job to make sure those that are statutorily responsible for that come to the table and consult the community. We in the end, we can only do so much. In this case, build a development, fund the bus route, and it's for the bus company and the local authority the statutory duty to make sure it's done properly. You're the second person that's raised it, because I had a resident outside who was delighted by the thought of the bus. Part of what needs to happen is proper community consultation and agree what that route is. A bus is already serving the community. The issue is, how would that bus route take place into the future, and what's the local provider going to do in order to consult the community about the best route? I don't know, but I think what I'm hearing is doesn't sound like it's been well done by the bus company and local authority. We need to go back to local authority and demand that happens properly. We've got the local councillors we can put weight on as well. So my sense is everyone wants a bus. Now we're talking about where the bus runs. And so we should be encouraging that consultation to be taking place. And if it hasn't, that's the message we take away.
Helen's got her hand up here, Emma. There we go.
Why aren't enough drop curbs in Bath for wheelchair users?
Yeah, so Helen's asking about drop curbs in new, well, not just new estates, but generally. I think you asked about Bath generally, didn't you? And again, that's not something that always is easy to manage. So even in this estate here, which is a new estate, you can see when you walk along the further edge there, we've got drop curbs in some areas and not others. And we know that we need to get those sorted out as well. Again, it's something that we have to do in partnership with the local authority. Why there aren't more elsewhere, I don't know. And it's something that people need to keep drawing to our attention, and we can try and put influence on the local authority as much as possible to get those things done. But it is something that comes up repeatedly, particularly when people move into a home who've got limited mobility, whereas the people living there before didn't. And then they will ask for a change to be made to the pavement structure. So please keep telling us where it's not happening, and we'll do all we can.
Can I just add to that? We have an obligation to make sure our homes are accessible. The places we create are accessible. Existing communities that we are the main landlord for is accessible. So we do have a role. We might not be able to fix the entire world, but we can try and influence the world that we have some influence over. So we've got a conversation at the board in November about what the future development standards should be for our homes, and a debate about the extent to which our homes should be more lifetime homes. I think that's part of the question. Do you build more or do you build less, but you make sure they're more accessible? These are the sorts of issues the board have to grapple with. In the same token, when we're thinking about asset management strategy, part of the asset management strategy should be saying, to what extent should our homes be accessible? Should we make sure part of our standards, in our asset management standard, is about converting a certain proportion of our homes so they are fully adapted? Should our homes always be level access wherever possible? Should we be building or retrofitting existing locations so that wherever possible there is level access? But that's a challenge for us, and I really think it's important that residents and the voice and the lived experience of our residents are in these strategy documents.
So I agree with you. We'll try and do better in our own estates, and we'll try and influence our partners to do more elsewhere. We had a few questions that were sent in advance by people who couldn't come, and we've actually got videos. I'm not going to play the videos, but there was a question from one of them which I'm going to bring Jane into, because I think it would be good to hear from Jane, where we had a comment from a resident who was saying, it doesn't appear to me that your teams always talk to each other. How do you make sure that you communicate better? And I think it might be an opportunity for Jane to talk a little bit about some of our thinking around technology and how we might use that in the future.
Thanks, Paul. We were having a conversation earlier, weren't we, around this? So in terms of the conversations already today, we've said that colleagues really want to help customers, and sometimes, we need to do better to make that easier for customers to provide a better service to you. And I think in some ways the systems that we have today, they're a little bit old, to be fair. They're a little bit like some of our homes. They've been around for quite a long time, so they work in quite a linear way. So you might be talking to more than one colleague in Curo. You might have more than one thing that you're trying to improve in your home, and customers tell us that experience can feel disjointed. We've also heard that actually you'd like to know more around the progress and have more communication in terms of the actions that we're taking. So our systems that our colleagues use to do that they're really clunky, and it's not really very joined up in terms of workflow. So it's not very easy for colleagues to do that in a great way today. So as part of this strategy that we've talked about will be to really improve the connection of, I guess, our systems and our information for that to be really joined up. We were talking earlier about that sort of going from what we have today is maybe like an old-fashioned in-tray into something that has more like a spider's web, really, where the customer is at the heart, and whoever you talk to in Curo about whatever your need is, that the information that a colleague has would be connected far easier and be able to give you much better information and predict and tell you what's happening in the future. So that's quite a big transformation. It's quite a big change, and it will take some time and a few steps to get through. But we're definitely passionate around ensuring that technology and our systems help to provide a better joined up experience for you and more communication so you know what's going on.
Thank you, Jane. Do we have any more hands up in the room? There we go. We've got a couple.
So we were just going to say, it's not the customers complaining or putting their thing forward. The maintenance man has said, yes, this job needs doing, sends it back to you, and then nobody hears nothing until we talk again. You know, I've complained. 5 times or 6 times I had someone come out about the same complaint. Two surveyors oh yeah, this needs to be looked at properly. A year later, one chap come back out, went up a ladder, which is the first time he actually done it. He went up a ladder, took the roof tile off, and he said, there's the problem. You've got a great big hole in the roof. Boom. Oh, sorry. So where's the communication? I mean, 2 surveyors, you're paying money for them, or our rent's paying money for them, whatever, I don't know. I mean, there's no communication. I mean, I've had so much damp, so much leakage. I mean, I'm still working. I'm in sheltered housing. And I just think I'm spending all my money decorating. I've only been in there, 5 years? I think I've decorated my house now about 6 times in 5 years. I can't afford to keep painting, decorating. If you're not going to keep the repairs going, are you going to pay for my paint as well? Do you know what I mean? And they don't care. You just don't seem to care. Sorry. Not complaining about Europe because people are so nice, everybody's so nice, but it's just frustrating.
Yeah, and I think if we take sort of some of the essence of that scenario and your experience there, which I'm really obviously is really not great to hear about, and really sorry for that. Over the last, if I go back sort of this time last year, actually, we were really struggling to get the level of experience and consistency that we needed from a surveyor's perspective. And Julie might want to say a bit more, but we've been working really hard. First of all, to get the right amount of surveyors. Secondly, to have those actually employed by Curo, because we do tend to find that when there tends to be an increase in satisfaction and quality of work from colleagues that are actually employed by Curo. And we had quite a bit of change of colleagues in the surveyor's place sort of a year ago. So there's quite a bit of work that Julie and team have been doing to improve that in the immediate term rather than what I was talking about over the long term.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, and I hear your frustration. I've heard the same frustration from other customers as well, and I'm not proud of it, and neither are my colleagues. I think if you remember back that awful situation where that poor boy Awab died, I think back in 2020, 21, and the association where his family lived, it came out in the coroner's report that it was down to damp and mould not being addressed. What happened as a result of that, it happened whilst COVID was still about. It meant that, quite rightly, because of the publicity, then lots and lots, not just within Curo, lots and lots of customers across the housing sector who were dealing with similar issues complained, and the amount of demand for damp and mould problems went through the roof, excuse the pun. What happened as a result was the need for expert surveyors within the sector. There was more expert surveyors, expert surveyors. And what happened was that every housing association in the land was looking to employ really good surveyors. What that meant was that the really good surveyors could name their price and were going to the housing associations that offered them the most money. What then happened was that all of the other housing associations were scratching around for surveyors. Some of them were good, some of them were not so good, and that's where we found ourselves a few years ago. Luckily now, we have been able to recruit a band of surveyors that will go up on ladders, that's the difference, that are curious about what's happened and want to find out what the root cause of the problem is. We've also recognised that at the same time, contractors, again, could name their price because there was so much demand for that type of work out there. I'm not sure if you were here earlier when I mentioned it, but we've recognised that actually we can do a much better job on roofing and leaking issues by bringing in an in-house team to be able to do the work. It's improved our end-to-end times, it's improved the quality. We will still probably need to have some contractors come in because of the levels of demand, but we have learned a hard lesson from, unfortunately, the experiences of people like yourself, and I'm very sorry about that. I'm not going to say that it's going to get brilliant overnight, but what I can say is we've brought in a specialist damp and mould team with specialist surveyors. All of our surveyors are undergoing training on specialist damp and mould skills so that they can use infrared systems, they can identify the root cause. So rather than just go, oh yeah, we think there's a tile missing or something, we actually understand what the root cause is so that we're not wasting time going out 5 or 6 times. So we have learned a lot. As I said, I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to be brilliant overnight, but we have listened. We are learning from the lots of complaints that we've had, and we are making changes. So please bear with us. Please let us know if we're still not getting it right, but we are putting things in place because of listening to yourselves that will hopefully make your experiences better going forward.
I approached Curo last year about a new kitchen, and all the other houses around me, I live in a sheltered accommodation, and they were all being done. People were being offered new kitchens what haven't been in there very long. I've been there 10 years. They told me I would have a new kitchen this year. I've been waiting for a phone call to say they would like to come in and have a look. Nobody got back to me. I rung them about a month ago, and I was told I had to wait to 2028 for a new kitchen. Well, if you're telling people that you'll have one next year, I would take it that you're going to have another kitchen. But they've changed it now to 2028.
Yes. So I don't know if you were here earlier, but in Vic's presentation, he was telling you about the various demands that we have in terms of what we need to spend our money on. So the two main things that have come our way in the last couple of years is, one, we've had to increase our spending on safety, particularly fire safety. Really, really important, very expensive, and not very sexy, because most of the work that we do around fire safety is hidden. You won't be able, unlike a new kitchen, which looks fabulous, you don't see the work that happens with fire safety because very often it's behind walls and etc. So the other thing, as I've been mentioning, is damp and mould. Huge demand come our way over the last 2 or 3 years, and also making sure that our houses are warm, and that the price of heating your homes is affordable. Again, not very sexy because the things that we do around insulation, etc., you don't see. The only money that we get is what we get through our rent that you pay us. When I started off in housing, too many years to actually say, that rent money paid for day-to-day repairs and some of the improvements that we did, kitchens and bathrooms. Now there's a whole load of things that it has to pay for, and the amount of money that we get in is the same. It's not gone bigger. It's a roundabout way of saying we've had to make some decisions that we wouldn't like to make. One of those decisions was we have had to extend the life cycle of our kitchens, and we did that, I think, Matt, was it last year or year before we made a decision? So we've extended it by a couple of years, and unfortunately, I'm really sorry, it sounds like you've fallen, that's one of the reasons why we've had to extend it.
Somebody had phoned me,
Yes,
sent me a letter.
We should have.
I'm sorry, but we can't do your kitchen. The
We
bloke
should have
I
done
spoke
that.
to was a bit offish in the first place, and this one was just blunt on, the reasoning why. But I just feel myself, if you promise something, you should hold to that.
You're
really,
right. You're
to be
absolutely
honest.
right. We should have.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that we didn't.
Thank you for that question. We've actually run to the end of the time for the Q&A now. We did make this 15 minutes longer than it was last year from your feedback. I know there's a few people with hands up still. we'll be here after the next little bit because Vic and I are now going to hand out some awards for our Curo in Bloom competition and our community awards. It'd be great if you stayed to cheer people on. But we are going to finish the Q&A now. But as I've said, all the stalls are still there and our teams are all around and we will all still be here after the next 20 minutes or so. So thank you very much to Jane and Julie. And you can now disappear. And Vic and I will now go on with the next bit.